Hi, everybody. This is Nick with Audio Video Export. It's a pleasure having you here with us today. And as you can see with us, for those who are watching live, we've got Ariel, who is back and fighting and stronger than ever with the Rockin' a New Do. We're excited to have him with us and participating. We've got the Polaris crew on with us today, JP down in Guatemala, and Manfred here, who's mostly our primary contact within Polaris Controls. They do a lot of great work for us, and we're excited to have them on board with us and sharing. Bear in mind that he's going to have a lot of Polaris and Lutron contacts and whatnot, but Audio Video Export traditionally wants you guys to channel whatever questions it is that you may have directly through us. So if you don't have a sales contact here, which would either be George Vera or George Ocampo or myself, please do email me, Nick at AVE-export.com. We're always happy to be able to help you and take care of any and all needs that you've got. A little bit of maintenance. We do have a handouts window here. So there are 3 handouts for you to be able to download, keep, love, and cherish for all and ever time. Please make sure that you do download those. Again, if you're watching this as a recording, send me an email, nick at av-export.com. We'll make sure that you get those handouts for your need. You will need them whenever you're going to be doing some of the exercises that Ariel will be reviewing today. So, and there's also, as a final piece, we do have a question box open. So any and all questions it is that you may have, feel free to write them down. If it merits, I will interrupt Ariel, but we generally plan on having a Q&A portion afterwards. So feel free to take care of that. Ariel, thank you, and your entire team, JP and Manfredo, for being here with us today. We're excited to have you guys on, and she's all yours.
Good morning. Thank you, Nick. Thanks to our friends at Audio Video Export that provide us with much needed support in the region. Audio Video Export is an authorized export distributor for Lutron products, amongst other products as well. My name is Ariel Gutierrez. I work with Polaris Controls. Polaris Controls is a manufacturer representative. We are appointed by different manufacturers to help them develop sales channels and opportunities in different regions. Audio Video Export is one of our partners for Lutron, specifically in the export distribution side. Very value added distributor amongst any around. So AV Export, we can't say enough good things about the folks there. As I said, we're hired by different manufacturers to help them promote products and develop channels. It's a pleasure for us to be with you today to talk about Lutron, shades, and window treatments. So I'm going to divide this training up in 2, basically. One part of it is going to be pretty visual. I'll show you the different types of window treatment products that Lutron manufactures. And then we'll be in the second part, which will be much more hands-on, how to measure, things like that. So on the agenda today, we're going to talk about motorized window treatments, Lutron solutions in general, and finally how to measure. Let's talk about a little history. Lutron has been doing automated shading systems since about 1997. They had started before in the early 90s with a product called Serena, the original Serena product for them. The product had great ideas. It was comprised of basically 2 rollers, one on the top of the window, one on the bottom of the window, and you could actually have different fabrics on the same roller combination and have different fabric scenes where you would have one fabric pop up on the window, then you'd have a second type of fabric for blackout, for example. A third type of fabric could be a logo. A fourth type of fabric could be no fabric, so the window was totally open. The technology was very ahead of its time. It had some issues with how the 2 rollers would coordinate each other, but those issues were easily resolved with the evolution of the product in the late 90s. So over 20 years experience and knowledge now with the product that you see now from Lutron. They can provide an entire shading solution, the shade itself, the electronic drives, the controls, the power supply, the hardware. It's not a DIY kind of shade that that you buy the motor, then you buy the fabric, and then you couple them together. No, Lutron provides you a finished product that can work very, very well. It's really the widest breadth of motorized window solutions, with over 1,500 materials, fabrics, motor drives of all sorts, etc. Lutron pays particular attention to the detail and the functionality, as well as the industrial design, to ensure that beautiful controls and a beautiful product is put forth in front of the customer. The shades also work seamlessly with automation systems like Alexa or Apple HomeKit or Google Assistant or URC that the folks at AV Export sell. Works well with Crestron and Savant and Control 4 as well. So it's a very, very broad line of window treatments that is easily integratable with different control systems as well. Additionally, Lutron provides 24/7 customer support worldwide. We're also here as Polaris Controls, as well as our friends at Audio Video Export too. So in the motorized window treatment world, we're basically going to talk about 4 different types of systems. I'll start with rollers. I'll continue with Drapery Track. I'll continue with tension and Roman shades and other specialized window treatment as well. So here's the roller shade. A roller shade is basically comprised of an electronic drive unit. Notice that I call it an electronic drive unit and not a motor, because this device is really much more than a motor. I would say about 30% of the actual electronic drive unit is motor. The remaining 60 or 70% is really a group of integrated circuits that allow the shade to have a lot more intelligence than basically a standard motor. You can be in a room with 60 shades, each shade with a different motor, and you can ask the system for all the shades to go up or down, and before they even move an inch, all the drive units talk to each other to ensure that they're aligned and that they fire at the same time. So it is a very aesthetically pleasing product, because it works at the same time as the other um, drives that are in that room. So what we're showing here are different options you can have with roller shades. You can have pockets where the shade hides into the ceiling. The pockets are basically a metal enclosure that will house the electronic drive unit with the actual roller tube, with the actual fabric, all inside a pocket that's hidden from view. It makes the installation very aesthetic and really finishes the product well in the space. On the right side of the screen, you'll see some fascia options. If you don't have a pocket and instead you want to use a fascia, there's 2 types of fascias shown here. One is a rounded edge one, and the second one on the right is a square one, which is also very popular as well. You can see here we have the opacity of the fabric that you can order on the actual roller shades. I have on the left side of the screen an example of what a translucent shade fabric looks like, then a room darkening one, which is less of a see-through type shade, and finally I'm sorry, I started with sheer, then translucent, then room darkening, which can darken the entire room with fabric. On the right side is actually a picture of the lutronfabrics.com webpage, which I'm going to visit now. You can see it here on my screen, and it is a live page that you can see the Lutron fabrics that are available online. if it loads. For some reason, it's taking a little long. No, that's not it. So let's go www.lutronfabrics.com. There we go. So it's a live web page. It shows you the available fabrics that Lutron has on all the different shade types. Probably they're updating it as we speak for some reason, but you will see that there's all sorts of fabrics there. There's sheers, there's translucent, there's room darkening fabrics as well. Within each family, you can also find different colored fabrics, different textured fabrics, different openings of sheer so that you can have a fabric. Here we go. So within the website, if we go to roller shades, you can see the different types of fabrics that are available. So within, for example, basket weave 4000 Eco, we can go into that one. You can see what the fabric looks like. You can also see other colors that are available on the same palette. So the fabric will look like this, basket weave type fabric, and then you can look at the different colors to see what those will look like. In my experience, this is key because and especially with the world post-COVID, availability of materials has become an issue worldwide. So this site allows you to have live access to what's usually available at the time of when you visit the fabric website. And I'm not kidding. They were probably updating the site as I wanted to go into it. So you can see a lot of information on the fabric. So for example, if we select this 3% chalk fabric, so 3% says basically determines the percentage determines the amount of light that you can see through it. The lower this number, the darker the fabric will make the room because it's allowing only 3% of light to go through. So this is showing you chalk 3% is it's actually available in 3, 5, or 10, and you can select them here. And you can actually see that the holes are bigger as I approach the larger number 10 versus a smaller number 3. So it's the same color. The weave is just separated a little bit more so that more light can go through it. You can see the acoustical rating on it. You can see if it's dual-sided or not. You can see if it's railroaded. So railroading is a great concept. Railroading basically says that the fabric, when you purchase a fabric roll from a manufacturer, I'm going to simulate a roll here on my camera. So this is a roll of fabric when you purchase it. What happens is that the fabric has a fixed width on it. And if you need to make a window treatment wider than what the actual width of the roll of the fabric comes in, railroading means that then you can take the fabric roll and shift it 90 degrees and railroad it to make it as wide as you need it to be. There are some limitations based on physical capabilities of the tube that holds the fabric, but railroading allows you to do a wider size than what is normally available on that particular fabric. So this one, usually basket weave fabrics, there's some that can be railroaded. There's others that cannot be railroaded. This one is pretty simple because it's really one type of fabric. But when you get into something like this, railroading can become an issue. This one actually you can railroad, but in some of these instances, railroading can become an issue because the actual pattern on the fabric does not allow it. So anyways, going back to what you can find here on lutronfabrics.com, you can go through the different type of collections that they have, and we'll talk about collections a little bit more later. And then within each collection, you can see what's available. You can then select whatever scheme you'd like to put, and then you can select within that palette, you can select the different types of fabrics with different colors, etc. So anyways, that's a great tool you can use. It's very simple, lutronfabrics.com. It really makes life a lot easier when you can see the fabric that you're trying to select in a project. So
Ariel,
anyways,
with regard to the fabrics, is it important for the customer? This is a question. Is it important for our dealer and or the end user to know what the fabric is in advance of the
yes,
quote? Does it affect the quote? Is the basics of the question?
it does. There's fabrics that are costlier than others, so the cost will be impacted by the choice of fabric you select. There are certain fabrics that will impact the cost much more than other fabrics, especially if you can or cannot railroad the fabric. And it has to do totally with the physical requirements or physical handicaps that the fabric may have upon railroading. So totally, and we'll see at the end of we have an hour and a half, Nick, or how long do we
Yeah,
have?
we've got an hour and a half. Yep.
So you'll probably see by the end of this first hour some of the requisites we need in order to be able to provide a quotation that is useful for the dealer.
And then there was a second follow-up to that. What would be your, this is kind of more my question than the dealer's question. I don't know if you're going to be reviewing that later on. However, is there an issue or a recommendation? Because I know that there are the binders, right?
Correct.
Do you find that dealers that have binders are more successful because they've got fabric on hand to be able to share with the customer?
Absolutely. Because people like to touch more than they like to see. So if the dealer, if a dealer is serious about shades, about window treatments, that dealer needs to have fabric binders. Otherwise, it's going to be always it's going to be a last minute. I need this shipped because the interior designer wants to see it. She wants to touch it. She wants to compare it, or he wants to compare it to the other things that are in the room, etc. So absolutely, positively, binders, and we'll show you examples of some of those binders a little bit later today. Binders are a requirement if you're in the window treatment sales process.
And I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to share my webcam just for a moment. We've got over here in our showroom a little demo area where we've got some Lutron products there. And not only the binders do we have that you'll see, there's the red one on the left-hand side. There's the darker one that's on the right-hand side over there. But then as above that, we've got some of those other demos that are available. So any of those that you've got, and again, if you're watching this, you're probably not getting the webcam, but we do have all of those available.
Excellent. All right, so let me go back to this. So again, lutronfabrics.com, excellent place to get information about what's available. So within the roller family, we have shades that are wired motors, meaning that there is a power supply somewhere that will need to power the motor. That power supply can either be a plug-in type power supply right by the shade, or a plug-in power supply, a few meters down the road, or a panel type power supply that holds 10 power supplies. And we can show you some of those a little bit later today. But there are some shades that are battery operated and battery powered shades. All the battery powered shades from Lutron are wireless in terms of communication as well. So on the left here, you see the compartment of where those batteries lie. Now, Lutron exclusively uses battery powered shades that use one-use batteries, meaning no rechargeable batteries, no rechargeable battery kits. It's going to be a D-size cell battery that's going to live inside a motor, an assembly, a motor assembly somewhere. And you can see in this instance, that's showing 4 Duracell D type batteries. Some of these shades can hold up to 12 of these batteries. So the bigger the shade is, or the bigger the wireless shade is, actually, the bigger the wireless battery powered shade is, the more batteries it's probably going to take. The batteries will probably last about a year before you have to change them. In some cases, as long as 2 years. It really has to do with how much that particular shade is used. It's very convenient because you can go into an existing location and simply install a battery powered shade without having to wire anything up to it or bring low voltage cables or anything like that. So it's very, very, very good. You can do, up to 144 square feet. That's a 12 by 12 shade on a roller battery powered shade. Lutron's the only one that can actually do such a big square footage on a battery powered shade. So I'm showing you here some examples of roller battery powered shades with fascia, and you can see an architectural fascia on the left, top left, which is basically a white type fascia. On the right, you're going to see a fabric covered or fabric wrapped fascia, and then on the bottom you can see exposed roller shades as well, which is an option that some people like. Now, within the battery powered world of Lutron, there are two types of battery powered shades. One shade, which is called the Serena, and the name is back from Lutron's original window treatment attempt. So Serena was really meant for the retail type environment. Serena works as a standalone shade, meaning with a standalone remote control that communicates directly to the shade itself without talking to anything else. Or it can communicate to Caseta type products, which Audio Video Export is Lutron's authorized Caseta export distributor for the entire Caribbean and Latin America. So that's a great opportunity to match a very simple to use shade, very simple to install shade to a Caseta system. Now, Serena has some limitations with the amount of available fabrics, for example, and available drive units that you can put on it. But for most applications, Serena can cover a lot of territory if you don't have to integrate it beyond a Caseta type system. Everything Lutron in window treatments uses Lutron's Clear Connect radio frequency technology, which operates at 434 hertz. That's FM, and it uses a hybrid drive and ultra efficient standby power to provide longer battery life. So that's a huge thing for Lutron to have a motor that can remain in ultra efficient standby power, so that the amount of time that you can use that battery can be extended a significant amount. So there are standard fabrics used with different colors and textures and opacities as well. It is available for manual operation, where you can simply pull the roller down as you would with a traditional roller fabric type window treatment. So Serena also comes in something called a honeycomb shade that you can see on the bottom right of this picture, and the honeycomb shade basically looks like a honeycomb, and so the entire bar at the bottom goes up and down. It doesn't roll onto each other. It just becomes like an accordion type shade. It provides the that air gap in the middle really provides really good, very efficient heat filtering. So very efficient for HVAC systems, etc. So it's like a pocket in it. There is a second version for Lutron battery powered shades. It's called Triathlon. So triathlon can work with standalone, with Caseta, with Radio Raw 2, and with a system called Homeworks QS from Lutron. It is essentially the same thing that the Serena product can do, except it can do much more. It can do larger roll sizes. It can do more fabrics. It can do uh, other types of applications that a Serena product simply does not do. So here you have a description of what the difference between Serena and triathlon is. And I like to start by the bottom. So Serena is a scaled down version of triathlon with limited size and fabric selections. It was designed for retail distribution and for use with retail systems like Caseta. That's what Serena is. Whereas the triathlon shade, those are battery powered Savoya Qs wireless rollers. They are available in much bigger sizes, more fabric options, and are compatible with more systems. So if you're looking to do something beyond Caseta, or your customer is looking to do a system that is beyond the capabilities of Caseta from a number of devices point of view, triathlon is really the way to go with a battery operated radio frequency controlled shade. So roller shades, there's other selections for roller shades that we can talk about. One is Palladium. Palladium is a roller shade that has exposed hardware basically, and you can see a picture of it on the right side of the screen. You can see the exposed hem bar, the exposed hardware on this shade. Some customers prefer Palladium, others don't. I personally like the traditional roller shade, but there's customers that prefer to have that exposed industrial type metal bracket. You can see the end, center, and jam brackets for Palladium. As you can see, it is a fully exposed shade. There's no pockets for this. It's totally exposed in its industrial design. The nice thing about Palladium is that it also has a complete family of controls and thermostats that bring together the whole industrial look to it. So you can match, for example, the metal color and metal finish of the bracket to the metal finish of the keypad and the metal finish of the thermostat as well. So Palladium, think of it as a specialized, more costly alternative to a Lutron shading system that gives you exposed hardware and gives you matching keypad and control capabilities as well. So Lutron also has something called Savoya Qs Wireless. So Savoya Qs Wireless is wireless in how it communicates with the control system, but it is not a battery powered shade. It is a shade that is powered by power supplies that are either plug-in or can be junction box mounted or can be power panel type mounted, centrally located as well. What we're showing you here is that the wireless option allows you to have an antenna that is plugged into the electronic drive unit at the window treatment location where the drive unit is located to allow you to have wireless communication to the shade, but not battery powered option to it as well. So within Savoya QS, the family, other than the rollers, and really the difference between the Savoya QS wireless roller and the triathlon or Serena is the fact that they have a power supply. It's not a battery powered one. So if we look at the Drapery Track, which is an option of within the Savoya QS family, you have the ability of going into an installation, providing the track and the motor for the track, and then you can add whatever fabric you want to the Drapery Track obviously, as long as you don't exceed the capacities of the Drapery Track and the Drapery Track motor. So this is very popular with interior designers, where they would prefer to use a Drapery Track to conserve some of the privacy into that space and not have any light gaps. The Drapery Track is very good because it allows you to provide an automation without having to worry about any of the fabric selection type. So that's the biggest benefit of Drapery Tracks, is that as a company, we've done several hotels where we have provided the dealer with a Drapery Track solution for the project, and then the project would provide the fabrics to match the hardware that's already installed in that room, for example, for a hotel. So with Drapery Tracks, there's we can do tracks that are up to 30 feet long. They can have 90-degree bends in it. They can have custom type bends that you do on the job site. You can have it draw from the center or draw from one side or draw from the other. The draw can be from the side where the motor is operated, or it can be from the opposing side as well. We can do curved tracks, as I said. We can do a lot of different options with Drapery Tracks. The picture that you're seeing here today, it's showing you actually a tandem type Drapery Track. You have one that is closest to the window for the sheer, and then you have a parallel installed one for the blackout of that room, and they work independently of each other if that's the case. So that's what you can do with Drapery Track, for example. Lutron has another product called the horizontal sheer blind. This is really two motors inside this unit. One allows you to bring the entire shade up and down, and you can see that on the right side of the screen, where the actual shade goes all the way up or all the way down. And you can also tilt the fabric so that you have more privacy or less privacy, as you would the next type of system, which is a wood blind system. So Lutron does have motorized wood blinds. Again, it's a two motor configuration. One motor brings the entire blind up and down, and the second motor does the tilting of the wood slats on the blinds. This is a specialized type drapery. It is a vertical drapery, meaning that the fabric looks like a drapery fabric, but instead of opening to the sides, it goes up and down. This does come with its own valance, or you can have the valance custom made as well. So the valance is the top treatment that you see on this motorized window treatment. It gives you the drapery look, but it does not have the draw to the sides that the Drapery Track requires. So where do you use this? For example, if you have limited space on the sides of a window and you don't want to have all the stack back of the fabric to one side of the window, and you'd rather just have a very clean look, that's where Courbet comes in, because you can have the drapery go up and down instead of to the sides. Here's another specialized window treatment system. This is called a Roman shade. So Lutron provides you with a motor and with a mechanism to allow for the fabric to go up and down. You can provide the fabric on site, install the fabric on site to this motor assembly that Lutron provides. So this is a very popular item with interior designers as well that would like to have more control over a project in terms of how it looks. You can provide them with a Roman shade type system. They can select the fabric, you can install it on site, etc. Finally, we have a very specialized shade system. This is called a tension shade. And what's really happening here, there's essentially a motor that's pulling a string, and depending on the direction of where that string is going, it's going to create a tension shade to open or close. So on the left side of the picture, of the screen, you'll see a picture that has an open glass ceiling, and you can press a button, and on the right side of the screen, you can actually see how the tension shade closes itself with a center draw to have a totally darkened room if that's what you'd like to see. So this is a ceiling or a roof. We can do this with a window where you'd like to have the roller on the bottom of the window and just have the fabric go up to close and down to open. That's a popular use for showers where you'd like to have the fabric on the bottom of the window and have light coming from the top of the window and not the bottom itself. So those are basically all the systems that Lutron has for their window treatments. So we have roller, we have wireless rollers, both in the Serena and in the triathlon side. We have wireless from a communication perspective with the Lutron QS wireless option. We have drapery tracks, we have tension shades, we have horizontal shear blinds, we have wood blinds as part of the family. So Nick was alluding to this. So this is the fabric sample binders that are available. There's 4 essential ones. One is a classical collection, the other one's a gallery collection. The one on the bottom left is a honeycomb essentials one. That is only honeycomb type fabrics, and the bottom right one is the more performance type shade collections for more higher end type installations. My recommendation would be to at least have the classical collection binder as part of your marketing tools. The second one I would recommend is a gallery collection one. The third one I would recommend is the Atelier collection one, and the fourth one, if you do come into honeycomb projects, would be obviously this fourth binder. So in the order of progression, I would have the classical, then the gallery, then the Atelier, then the honeycomb. That's my personal opinion. So right now I'd like to exit the presentation and show you some additional tools that we have. So these are some of the handouts that we have available. And let me take a look at the handout that you have. So the first one that you have listed there is this one. So this one shows you the measuring guidelines and best practices for shades. So look at point number 1. This is very important. Measurements should not be taken until the install site conditions are exactly the same as they will be when the actual shade installation is done. This means that by no means or circumstance should you place an order for shades if you have not measured what the final condition of that shade is going to be. Don't place orders based on drawings, because 99% of the time the drawing will not be the same as what the actual installation condition is. Don't place orders when you have a building under construction that has not completed the trim out, because that's when you're going to find yourself with errors. So logistics is number 1. Number 2, measuring tools. So we recommend that you measure with a tape measure as well as with an electronic tape measure too. The best practice is to verify the electronic measurements with a traditional measuring tape until you're comfortable with the tool and confident with the results. That means that if you're using an electronic tape measure, you must use a traditional measuring tape just to make sure that you're comfortable using it. Okay, so I didn't want to go through those two because those are the most common mistakes are right there. So space requirement. This shows you for roller type shades. So the roller 20, 64, 100, 225, that really pertains to the square footage of the fabric that that particular roller is going to use. So as you can see here, the height and depth of the mounting of a round roller is going to be the same because it is a round piece. It becomes different when you have dual mounted roller shades. Dual mounted means that in one bracket, you're holding two rollers, one perhaps for the shear and the second one perhaps for the blackout. So in that circumstance, the dual mounted bracket will measure at least for the roller 20 through the roller, actually through all of them, the height is going to be larger than the depth of it because you're really placing both rollers on top of each other with without having concentric centers. You can see that here on the left side of the screen. So you need to make sure that you have the space requirements in either in the within the window jamb or on the outside of it in order to fit this. The light gaps, you should also note that the light gaps are going to be probably about 3/4 of an inch on most installations. It's going to be a little bit more on certain installations and a little bit less in other installations. So here's the thing that you need to consider with light gaps, which is the space between the fabric and the end of the bracket. So you can see up here that the bracket to bracket width is always going to be larger than the fabric width in these types of installations. And usually that gap is shown here, 3/4 of an inch, 13/16, etc. So the next thing it's showing you, it's giving you instructions, and I know that as men we don't read instructions, but actually these instructions are pretty good because it shows you what the bracket to bracket dimension is comprised of. It's comprised of the fabric width, which is here, as well as the light gaps both at the operator side and at the idler side. So that gives you the bracket to bracket width. That's something that you need to take into account if you're installing within an inside mounted window jamb. So here it's showing you how to measure the installation with the jamb. This is showing you how to measure for height on a roller shade, for inside mount, for outside mount. This is showing you what fabric drop or roll rotation looks like. So on a regular roll, the fabric goes up and down closest to the window pane. On a reverse roll, it goes in reverse. It goes further away from the window plane. Where would you use something like this? Well, if you're installing a roller window treatment on a door and the door has hardware, let's say the doorknob is right here, well, the fabric, you don't want the fabric to go up and down by the window glass because it's gonna go onto the hardware. So that's the first document that I wanted to show. Hold on one second. The second one, or actually in that same document, you can look at all the different requirements that you need to measure and just use this as a checklist. So you select what kind of operator you're going to use, either wired or wireless, the tube size you're going to use, the fabric number you're going to use, the fabric face that you're going to use, fabric mount, drop, And I'll show you why this is important, because when we use the design tool that I'll show you in a few minutes, you'll see that these same requirements are on that tool as well. So if you're using side channels or battens or seams where they're going to be, if you're using a power supply because it's not a battery powered shade, where it's what type of supply you're going to use, etc. So this is how you go room by room. This is the name of the room, the area of the room, how many you need, what side of the drive of the window treatment the drive's going to be, the bracket width, and it's showing you A, the fabric width, which is shown as E, the height, and then it gives you on one page, it just gives you two in case you need to measure. So this is really for roller type window treatments. The second handout that you have here is the roller shade selection guide. So this is showing you the roller shade, and in the roller shade you have the one we talked about before, the skylight or bottom up, which are just tension shades, how you're going to mount them inside the jam or outside of the jam, if it's going to be a regular roll or reverse roll, and this is showing you where how to measure. In the case of a roller shade, you really want to measure in 3 places, both vertically as well as horizontally. Why? Well, I know that in Latin America and the Caribbean, I know we have perfect craftsmanship, and you're never going to have a window that is in the shape of a V or in the shape of an A. They're all going to be square. Well, that's not going to happen. There's always going to be one part of the window that's going to be a little bit wider than the other one. You really want to use the dimension which is the least of the 3 to ensure that it'll fit into that constrained dimension. On the vertical side, you also want to use the tallest one. So they're opposite. On the vertical, you want to use the tallest one. On the horizontal one, you want to use the shortest one to make sure that the fabric will go up and down with no problems. Here you select the fabric and color name. If you're going to put any printed material on it, you can select the bottom bar to be exposed, architectural, half wrapped, or sealed. And then the bottom bar, if it's going to have a color or a frame color, you can select it here as well. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is because if we go to the actual tool that we use for the ordering process, and I'm just going to make up a project here. I'm going to add a project. The project name is going to be AVE Webinar Home. The name of the space is going to be the living room. It's in the design phase. The description is example for the webinar. Where it's located, who did it, what the job type is. I'm going to say it's education. Who's the primary Lutron influencer? Let's say it's going to be Nick Muro. I'm sure I spelled that wrong. The estimated close date, just to put something on it, we can put the, let's say the 14th of October. And if I'm going to use imperial or metric, I prefer to use metric, but I know there's a few places in the Caribbean that use imperial, so we can use imperial. And then I go into the tool. It's already provided the name of the tool of the, of the project up here. And then I can start adding different devices. So the first thing I'm going to add is a roller type window treatment. And I'm going to say that that roller is going to be, I'm just going to use 48 inches wide and let's say it's going to be 64 inches tall. It's going to be inside mounted, and then I can select the fabric. If I want to select the fabric, I can either enter the name of the fabric here, look for it, or launch the fabric finder. And in the fabric finder, it takes you to that same place that we were at, and I can select whichever one I want. I can select it by price, which is going to be less expensive or more expensive. So to answer Nick's question at the beginning of the conference, we have the ability of specifying I want the lower performing fabrics here, or the middle of the road performing fabrics. Obviously, the more expensive you go, the more options you're going to have. So you can limit it to the top and middle ones if you want. So let's say I want the E screen, and within the E screen, I can look for, let's say that I like this color. I'm going to call this color Caca de Mono. So here's a color Caca de Mono. It's already selected there. I can select the treatment that I want on top, if it's just going to be a fascia, or if it's going to be a pocket, or whatever it's going to be, or if it's not going to be anything, it's just going to be universal brackets, I can leave it blank, etc. I'm going to use a fascia just because I'm special. I'm going to select which kind of operator I'm going to use. And let's say it's going to be a triathlon shade, because I'm going to install it with a Radio Raw 2 system that Audio Video Export is going to provide as well. So I can say it's going to be Savoya Qs Triathlon Wireless, or Triathlon is going to be wireless, sorry. And the operator is going to be standard. And so it's automatically going to select a fabric wrapped option, because it's going to be a triathlon battery powered one. And I can say it's going to be battery. It's not including the batteries. If I select it to be wired, it's going to select something different. Now it's going to be a different type of shade altogether. So if I save it, it automatically gives me the shade with the list price, etc. If I want to go in and edit it, I can just go into the shade itself. I want to look at additional options for it. I want to see the hem bar, what kind of hem bar I want. I'm going to see if the fabric is going to be regular or reverse roll, if I'm going to have an end cap on the fascia, what the top back cover is going to be, what color, if it's going to be railroaded, if I'm going to add custom seams, where am I going to add the custom seams, if it allows me to do it. If I'm going to have light gaps, what those gaps are going to be, and the measurement that I've taken is bracket to bracket. And it's also showing me the diameter of that roller once the fabric is on it. Why is that important? Because if I need to tell the architect or the contractor on the job, hey, I need to have, a 3-inch head or jam in order to put that in, that's where I see it. So anyways, it's, as you can see, it's very simple to use. So that's one room. I can now act either another area if I wanted to, or within that area, I can add another product. Let me say it's going to be a drapery track. So the drapery track itself, I need to select which track I'm going to use, and the number that you see associated here, the 105, the 145, or the 175, also is in reference to the amount of square feet that that you can manipulate with this track. So let's say it's a smaller track, 105. I'm going to say it's going to be, I don't know, a 10 foot. So I want to do it 120 inches is the width of the track. And I'm going to select if it's going to be a dual, a tandem, a dual tandem, etc., depending on the application. So let's say it's gonna be a single one. The pleats, I can do two types of pleats on drapery tracks. I can do something called a ripple fold, and what the ripple fold means is that the fabric looks like an S when it's mounted on the track, versus a pinch pleat. What we do with a pinch pleat is that we, like with pants, you pinch the fabric on top so that the fabric has like a triangular shape. Some people prefer the ripple fold, other people prefer the pinch pleat. So let's say ripple fold just to have something different. The fullness is the amount of fabric that's going to be installed into that track. The bigger the number, the more carriers it's going to have on the drapery track. I can select the color of the drapery track itself. It can be either bronze, silver, or white. If it's going to be a custom color, charges will apply. Where the motor is going to be on the left or the right, where I'm going to draw, if it's going to be a left draw, it can be a left draw. If it's going to be a center draw, it can be a center draw as well. How am I going to install this? It's going to be wall mounted or it's going to be ceiling mounted. And what color will that be? The number of splices, if I need to have a longer track, I can actually splice various tracks together onto one motor if I needed to. If it's going to be a manual breakaway, meaning that I can manually pull it to open if I wanted to, I'm going to say yes. So none, single, it says the product cannot be built. Please make necessary adjustments. Let's see what those adjustments are going to be. So I've asked for 100% fullness. This is giving me the actual opening size, the estimated setback. So if you add these two together, that should be about 120 inches, and that's what it's showing you. The amount of weight you can have on this track, the maximum, the number of brackets on the track, the number of carriers on the track. So the number of brackets, it's the bracket that's holding the track to the ceiling or to the wall. The carriers is the little cars that are going to be on the track itself. And then it's showing you the total track length, which is 120 inches. And if we save that, now we have two products onto this. So the reason I'm showing you this is because if we go back to these two handouts, this is essentially what the folks at Audio Video Export need in order to be able to put together a quotation for you. We obviously need dimensions. In some cases, specifically, you need fabrics, and those cases are going to be the product that Lutron manufacturers, that is a finished shade product like a roller shade. We need to know the fabric. And then we also need to make sure that the dimensions that you're providing are the correct ones. So those two documents are really good for that. The third document I'm going to show you is what is shown as a third handout on this webinar, which is called the Lutron Roller Shade Fabric Reference Guide, Spring Summer 2020. So here's the quick reference guide for fabric. So the application, areas where minor handling and obstructions may occur, you want to use a polyester composition type fabric. These fabrics tend to be more resilient and creases and wrinkles easily relax. However, they are not ideal for extremely hot environments as they can be prone to waves or stretching under intense heat. So fabrics that have polyester in it, because of the tendency of polyester itself, it will tend to shrink with heat, and it will probably cause a fabric to kind of fold at the ends of it. So if you want to use that notwithstanding, these are the fabrics that you need to consider. And so going back to Nick's question on price, this gives you an idea of the type of fabric that you need to use, taking into account some of the situation that you will see in the real world. Anyways, that's pretty much it. Window treatments are great because they are, for the dealer, they provide a massive amount of income for a room. Just think about it. In a room where you have one control station or one keypad, if you're using caseta, you're going to use a 4-button caseta. I'm sorry, you're going to use a 4-button Pico. The 4-button Pico costs, I think the MSRP is like $50. Whereas you can see where the MSRPs on these shades are. So the amount of work is not huge. You're just installing window treatments onto a jamb or onto a wall. So it's not that difficult. You just have to be able to measure and be able to install things that are level, and that's about it. So this is a great opportunity for dealers. I compare shades to selling lighting fixtures or to selling speakers, in-wall speakers, because it's repetitive in nature. In a room, yes, you can have a room with only one window, but you can also have a room that has, 10 windows. And so that becomes an interesting project when you have 10 windows, each one giving you 30, 40 points on it at those price points. Anyways, Nick, do you have any additional questions I can answer today?
No, the questions that you had were there or were covered as part of the presentation, so very thorough. Now is a good opportunity for anybody else who has. We obviously finished a little early. I do want to stress, though, if anybody is going to be typing any additional questions, the forms that Ariel reviewed with us, and I don't want to be a downer, but it's really important that we get all of the relevant information on there. One of two things is going to happen. Either we are going to reject the form and not be able to complete the quote, which is going to frustrate everybody because you just want to get your quote, and we want to be able to do that for you. Or number two, you're going to get something that you didn't really want. And what ends up happening is that at the finality of the quote process creation, audio video export, your salesperson is going to have you initial every individual page of that formal quote, and we're going to keep that on file. So if, like Ariel was mentioning before, if you measured with a digital tape measure and you are not absolutely 100% sure that the measurements on that digital tape measure are 100% accurate, and it is off by 1/4 of an inch, you're going to get the wrong product. And in getting the wrong product, neither Polaris Controls nor Lutron nor Audio Video Export is going to be responsible for that, because at the end of the day, we're not the ones who's doing the measurement. Now, if Lutron manufactures something incorrectly, that's different. We'll handle that as needed. But if it came out exactly as your quote came and you initialed on that, bear in mind that that's going to be your responsibility. So it's not a big deal. It's just that these can be very expensive, and we want to avoid any and all mistakes if at all possible. Is there anything else that you wanted to add on that, Ariel?
Yes, it is extremely important. I can tell you that you will have, on your first window treatment job, you will probably have an error in measuring. I guarantee. But that's going to be the only error that you'll ever make. Why? Because you will learn from it. Because it's not like buying a Pico that's a wrong color or a Pico that's 3 buttons instead of 2. You're buying a thing that comes in a box that's probably going to be, I don't know, 8 feet long. So you will remember the mistake that you make on your first order and not do that mistake again. For example, you measure a window that's 48 inches wide and 60 inches tall, and then you reverse the height with the width. And then you're going to have a tube that's going to be much wider than what the intended installation place is going to be. So I need to emphasize the requirement of measuring properly, because as Nick said, that is totally on you. Lutron Custom makes these shades. You order them, they make them. It's not that they have, you know, a stable of shades waiting for you to order that they just put in a box. They're custom ordered to your requirements, etc. So yes, absolutely. Measuring, documenting yourself is very important. Audio video export will have a copy of the document that you send them with a sign off. Lutron does require sign offs on the shade orders, and that's really to protect you, to protect them, and to protect your client. So absolutely, positively, use the documents that AV Export provides for quote purposes. They're not being mean to you by requesting the information. They're just trying to be thorough in order to protect your interests as well. That's
Absolutely. And you're going to want that for your end user as well, because if they decide
yep,
on one fabric and then they get that fabric and then they say, oh no, I want this other one, if it's not written down and signed for by them, in fact, then you open yourself up to problems
yeah,
later on. So
yeah,
without a doubt, that's really fundamental. And thank you, Ariel, for that. We're really not trying to be mean about it. We just want to CYA, cover your own behind. So
yeah, correct.
um, without a doubt. So no other further questions have come in, and
The
Ariel, I just wanted to say thank you so much. Go ahead.
one thing, that document that we're asking the signature for, you should have that doc as a dealer. You should have that document signed by your end user
Absolutely.
and save it, not just sign it and throw it away. Save it as a project file. Use that document. You can sign over that document and send it to Audio Video Export, so that there is traceability as to the version of the document that's going to be used.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. I know that Manfredo and JP have been a little quiet, but they've been here for moral support, sending me messages as needed. I appreciate that.
Sure.
That's
Thank you,
what we're
Nick,
here
for putting
for.
together the webinar.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm going to convert it now and then host it on YouTube, and I'll make sure that you guys get a copy of that as well. Again, I am Nick. So for those who are watching this either recording or who don't have a salesperson, Nick at AV-export.com. I'm your primary contact. And again, pleasure to be with you guys. And thanks again so much. And thanks, Ariel. Have a great one.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day. See you.